Hello everyone, Cyno will be one of 7 older characters getting buffed with the release of Genshin Patch Luna 8, complementing the simultaneous introduction of Sandrone and the new Stellar Conduct reaction in preparation for Snezhnaya. Cyno has had a wild beta rollercoaster, with many people wondering whether his buffs would actually be good for him. Fortunately, by the end of all the changes, Cyno ended up looking like a pretty solid Electro Stellar Conduct DPS that will only get better with future supports. So in this brief guide, I'll be covering everything you need to know about the newly buffed Cyno, including what kit changes he received, the best ways to build him, his potential best teams, and how strong he looks in the meta both currently and in the future with Snezhnaya's release. The new Stellar Conduct reaction is a core part of the character buffs. I will show a quick summary of everything that is involved with the new reaction here, but the main thing I want to emphasize in relation to the character buffs is that for everyone other than Mizuki, the majority of the new character buffs are only enabled when they are in the Radiant Stellar Conduct state, which requires you to be in a Polestar field created by triggering Stellar Conduct. And on the patch the buffs are being introduced, the only character that can enable Stellar Conduct for the team is Sandrone. Thus, in Patch Luna 8, you must have Sandrone on the team in order to access the majority of the character buffs for the older units. But in the future, there will be new characters that you can use, potentially including Cryo Traveler, that can enable the use of Stellar Conduct. Now, let's go over how Cyno got buffed. Cyno's original kit centered around him using his burst to enter his enhanced state called Pack Sworn Path Clearer to perform enhanced attacks. And while in this enhanced state, Cyno's skill, which simply does damage, would periodically get enhanced when Cyno enters the End-Seer state at intervals, and these enhanced skills dealt much more damage. This gameplay loop of entering enhanced state, spamming attacks, and using his enhanced skill when available is still the same post-buff, but now this same gameplay also works in the new Stellar Conduct team archetype. Added to his A1 passive, when Radiant Stellar Conduct is active, Cyno's enhanced End-Seer skill attacks get a new name, Dust Stalker Bolt Starsame, which deals 3 instances of direct Stellar Conduct damage, scaling with his attack and getting additional buffs with his Elemental Mastery from his A4 passive. Lastly, if Cyno uses his regular skill when he's not in his enhanced state, he will now enter his enhanced state for 6 seconds from that skill usage, allowing enough time to use one enhanced skill. This doesn't require Stellar Conduct, so this is a permanent quality of life feature for all of Cyno's teams. Regarding Cyno's talent leveling priority, it's the same as before, burst first, then skill. For Constellations, Cyno got a bunch of new additions that all revolve around an additional buff in Stellar Conduct teams added to his C1. When in the Radiant Stellar Conduct state, Cyno will get the effect Together We Rise when he enters his enhanced state. This is simply a 200 EM buff. But if Cyno swaps into another character while his enhanced state is still active, he can transfer his EM buff to the character he swapped to for the remaining duration of his enhanced state. C2 now grants additional stacking Stellar Conduct damage percent, max 5 stacks, when characters that are buffed by Cyno's C1 EM buff hit enemies with normal or charged attacks. C4 now additionally gives Cyno more energy when a character buffed by his C1 EM buff, excluding himself, triggers an electro-related reaction. And lastly, Cyno's buff C6 now fires additional instances of his new Stellar Conduct damage bolts in Stellar Conduct teams while he is buffed by his C1 EM buff. Overall, his constellations are fairly good in terms of damage increase, mainly early ones like C1 and C2, which is nice since he is a selectable character for the free constellation event. And the very significant damage increase is if you have Cyno C6, which gives him more instances of Stellar Conduct damage. So for all the C6 Cyno havers, you're going to be enjoying Cyno Stellar Conduct buffs. With this new Stellar Conduct teams, Cyno is looking to have new on-field combos. Instead of just spamming normal attacks and using his enhanced skill in his previous teams, in Stellar Conduct teams, it is looking optimal to implement Cyno's charge attacks to apply more electro, resulting in a slightly higher average number of stacks for the Stellar Conduct field's damage buff. And depending on whether you want to shorten or lengthen the rotation, you can do either 3 or 4 End-Seer enhanced skills. Here are 2 potential example combos for Cyno in Stellar Conduct teams. The top one is more straightforward in my opinion, and easy to execute as it simply repeats the same attack sequence, while the bottom one looks slightly better damage wise, but it is a little bit more complicated to execute since it has tighter timings and is more stamina intensive. But of course, keep in mind that optimal combos will very likely change with post-release testing and the release of future new supports. For Cyno's new best builds in this new Stellar Conduct teams, for weapons, he still wants weapons that give crit, attack, and EM. However, weapons that give regular damage percent are worse off because it doesn't buff his new Stellar Conduct damage from his End-Seer enhanced skills. His signature is very good on him in Stellar Conduct teams because of the EM to attack conversion its passive has, giving a ton of useful stats for him. 5-star stat sticks like J-Spear and Homa are good to use, Deathmatch is one of his best 4-star weapons if you get the battle pass, and Tamerate no Ohanashi, Missive Wind Spear, and Katane Cross Spear are fine free-to-play weapon choices. For artifacts, Cyno is a Stellar Conduct DPS in his new Stellar Conduct teams. teams. So his clear best set in this role is 4-piece Disenchantment, giving stellar conduct damage percent and crit rate with his 4-piece. For main stats, Cyno wants Attack Hourglass, Attack Goblet, and Crit Circlet. If you have Cyno's signature, EM Sands and EM Goblet will be the better choice. For substats, you want Energy Recharge, Crit, Attack, and EM. Cyno still wants to use his burst every rotation, and with at least one Favonius weapon user on his team, building around 125 to 130 energy recharge should be sufficient enough for Cyno. Lastly, for Cyno's best teams, while he still has his Dendro and Overload related teams, they only really got the quality of life addition of being able to enter his enhanced state with his normal skill. His actual main buffs are for specifically his Stellar Conduct teams, which will be quite limited in patch Luna 8 because you need to use Snezhnaya in order to enable Stellar Conduct. Then we have Yai, who is by far the best off-field Electro. Units like Beidou or Fischl can act as alternatives, but at a significant damage loss. Then the last slot needs to be an off-field Cryo. The best overall option looks to be Chi-Chi, since she also gives sustain, but units like Diona and Escoffier can be used as well. While there may be some dual DPS opportunities between using Cyno and Snezhnaya in a rotation, it currently looks optimal to just ignore Snezhnaya altogether, effectively playing a 3-character team. Because of this, when new stellar supports release when we enter snezhnaya, Cyno is going to greatly benefit, giving him an actual 4th character in his stellar conduct teams for a damage increase, and opening his teammate choices to be able to better use off-field cryo and or electro alternatives or other supports like animo ones he couldn't previously fit. Overall, Cyno got some pretty nice buffs that make him a solid Electro-Stellar Conduct DPS. His current numbers aren't that bad when considering he's playing in a 3-character team, but of course I don't recommend pulling Snezhnaya just to play the buff Cyno, since when the inevitable new stellar supports release, whether they are Stellar Conduct specific or more generic stellar supports, Cyno's Stellar Conduct teams are going to get a lot better both in terms of damage and in terms of character availability for team building, so Cyno's full potential will unlock once we start playing through Snezhnaya. That's everything I wanted to cover about the new buffed Cyno. Thanks to Genshin Noir, raulfigas, and MeowTews for all the reference calcs and their help with the creation of this guide. If you enjoyed this quick and concise guide, consider liking the video or sub to the channel so you don't miss out on similar guide videos in the future. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments, and with that, I hope you all have a wonderful day.